Alright, let's make some ink shapes and talk about how to make them. Well, hello there, I'm Détroit. I've realized it's been a while, and I mean a while, since I actually talked about these ink drawings of mine. It's about time I did it again. Most of the time I use these videos to talk about random things, and the digital painting videos are what I turn into drawing tutorials. These ink drawings are more like my personal therapy. I mean, it's not therapy, but it feels good to talk to you about anything that interests me and not force the topic of drawing all the time. Nevertheless, sometimes I should actually talk about ink drawings. Now, how should I go about this? Abstract ink drawings are such a strange concept to explain. Part of it is very rational and logical, but at least half of it is feelings and unconscious choices. There are two parts that I find crucial in the process of making an abstract doodle. The first part, which is also the hardest, is the moment where you have to put the tip of your pen on the paper for the first time. It's a bit strange to admit, but the beginning of an abstract doodle is hard. It's true for any drawing, but here, the whole vibe of the drawing will ride on this one stroke. There's always a bit of apprehension. It doesn't matter what your idea for a drawing was, it's the first line that will decide what it will be. I like to draw patterns. Today is a bit different because it's more messy, less organized, but when I make a pattern, the first few lines will be what I use for the rest of the drawing. If I don't like the first line, I can't erase, and it's very hard to change. Also, in a more practical way, making the first line means starting a drawing session, and I know I get immersed in it quick, so before making the first line, I have to think about refilling my glass of water, going to the toilet, making sure the lights are okay, the cameras are recording, and so on. So yeah, starting a drawing is strangely hard, and you have to force yourself to put the tip of the pen on the paper, and avoid being stuck in front of the white page with fear of making a bad drawing. The second crucial part to an abstract drawing, for me, is usually between the half and the 2/3 of the process, or the page, let's say. It's when I have to decide if I continue or if I stop. For a lot of my drawings, I don't fill the entire rectangle of the page. I intentionally break the shape that I'm filling with my pattern. This line of reasoning only comes at that part. On the flip side, when you do it a lot, you tend to become a bit lazy and want to end the drawing early. Like, yeah, I've done enough, right? But sometimes it's the wrong choice. The first half of the drawing is completely mindless, but when you get to that point, you have to think about where you want to go, where you should add more and where you should stop on your page. For this drawing you're watching, this moment was when I traced the horizontal line at the bottom. Making a border is really about deciding the endpoint. Even after that, when I continued the doodle, at least I had an idea of where it was going to stop. You can also see it in the fact that so far the pattern had been pretty continuous and homogeneous. I mean, the pattern itself is nonsense, but it was the same kind of nonsense all around. When I decided to make the bottom line is when I also changed the pattern and added circles at the bottom and something that looked like roots. I'm intentionally breaking the shape and making symmetry impossible. I will do the same thing later at the top of the drawing, where I draw a cone and basically fill the rest of the page with black. That's deciding the shape of the drawing, where to stop the pattern, and how to decide the composition of the drawing. These are the two most crucial parts to an abstract doodle for me, the first line and the 2/3 when I decide to keep going or not. You can note that these aspects I called crucial are not technical at all. The hard part isn't the technical part, it's not skill-based, it's more like a mental thing almost. To be honest, I am not sure how much a drawing like this is based on skill. I know it is, since I definitely wasn't able to draw this 3 years ago, but I can't really say why. I guess the firmness of my hand and my hand control is the most plausible suspect. Like, when I look at this drawing, I see a lot of lines or dots that in retrospect I shouldn't have added, but I don't see any mistakes. I don't see any line that wasn't made in the way I wanted to make it the moment I made it. Do you see what I mean? I have enough control over my hand to lay down every stroke exactly the way I want. The way I want might not be the best way, but it's a testimony to my skills. Having a good hand control is really important for a drawing like this. You could say it's even more so with a more organized pattern, but I'm not sure I agree. To me, it's more important for this. With a more organized pattern, a mistake is easier to see, but here, since the drawing style is already messy, if your hand does its own thing, then it's just chaos. This is why this sort of drawing is harder than making, let's say, similar lines on the whole page for me. This is chaos, but organized chaos. I can assure you that this needs more concentration than covering the page with lines of the same width. The things I have to look for in this drawing are the density of black versus white, for example. Overall, the density is the same, except of course where I deliberately filled an area with black ink. There are big shapes in the middle of small shapes. It means that every few centimeters I have to purposefully add a bigger shape to differ from the rest, since I started with the big shape. Even when I added dots, even though I wish I'd used less of them, since I started adding dots, I had to continue to add them, and so think of shapes big enough to add dots. You see, it's all just small things to think about, but they make the entire drawing and you can't be too careless. In turn, all of these aspects are what makes drawing like this more appealing to me. I love it when I do a drawing in this style. It's not the most satisfying to look at or to watch the process of, but for me it is. So then when I look at the bigger picture and I have to decide what doodle to make a video out of next, I have to take that into consideration. I have to find a balance between what I love to make and looks really pleasing for the viewer, or what I absolutely love to make but isn't as good for content, I think. Anyway, now that we are reaching the end of this drawing, I should precise that this entire commentary isn't that important. All in all, this is just an abstract doodle. This commentary makes it look like it's a big deal, but it really isn't. It all comes down to having fun and using ink. I just wanted to show you what can go through my head when I draw, since I don't often do that for ink doodles. It's less interesting than digital paintings, since for the kind of digital artworks I do, you need proper skills like proportions, composition, perspective, anatomy, and so on. But once in a while, I have to do that for inks as well, instead of chatting about random things. Here is the drawing you watched me make after I took a picture of it, opened it in Photoshop, and highly contrasted it. Otherwise, the ink isn't black enough and you can see the strokes when I filled the top with black. Do you like it when I explain my abstract drawing process? Tell me in the comments if there is something in particular you want me to explain. Also give me prompts to draw if you want to as well, it's always fun to pick your ideas. Subscribe for future art and follow my Instagram for past art. I'll see you in a few days. Bye!